And welcome once again to Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr, joined by Juan Zarate, our national security analyst. Juan, good to see you again.
Likewise, Bob.
Let's talk a little bit about Benghazi. There's been a lot in the news about what the administration knew about the attack, what it said about the attack, and whether or not Ambassador Susan Rice may have soft-pedaled what the administration actually knew. What's going on here? Is this just a Washington game again, or what is really happening?
Well, this whole crisis emerged right as we were reaching the sort of the 11th hour of the election, and so it got thrown right into the political mix. And that's why you've seen so much focus on what the administration said before, whether or not there was a cover-up, a lot of focus on Susan Rice. That will continue, there's no question, and I don't think Ambassador Rice's visit up to Congress just yesterday actually helped much. It may have aggravated matters, and so that will continue. But I think the key issues around this incident, the intelligence and security before the attack, what happened during in terms of lack of response, and then sort of what happens post facto in terms of ascribing blame and bringing the perpetrators to justice, which is what President Obama talked about early on after the attack. How does that all play out? And I think the Washington discussion of this has really lost some of the focus on some of the substance, where, by the way, Bob, I think you're going to see a lot of thorny policy and strategic questions emerge in the coming weeks.
Let's talk a little bit about that. So the FBI is still doing this investigation. They still have a small team, I'm told, in Tripoli. They're still interviewing witnesses. They've collected all the video evidence they can. They're trying to put together a potential criminal case. But does it ever get there?
Well, that's a huge question, and I think a question for the administration and for the American public is, what does bringing the perpetrators of these brutal murders to justice, what does that mean? Does it mean a criminal prosecution in New York? Are we actually able not only to bring an indictment, but are we able to actually go and arrest these guys? We already know that one of the alleged perpetrators has been openly thumbing his nose at both the Libyan government and the American government, saying, I'm sitting here, come get me. Does it mean that we will rely wholly on the Libyans? The Libyans perhaps want to prosecute. Is that good enough? Or does it mean we actually have to take some forceful lethal action because it's not going to be feasible to go in and actually arrest these guys, especially if they're protected by militias? And so this is a very thorny question. First of all, determining who was to blame, because there were a lot of actors at play, some connected to al-Qaeda, perhaps some who weren't. And then what do you do about it? And what do you do about it in a context where you don't necessarily want to open up a new perceived front in the war on terror?
Let's take these a couple at a time. I mean, it's a policy question really the administration probably doesn't want to confront. Let's say we make arrests over there, if we're allowed to make arrests. Where do we take those guys? Can you imagine President Obama taking anyone to Guantanamo? Can he bring them to Virginia or New York for civilian prosecution? How do you see that playing out?
Well, I think this raises all the same thorny questions about detention and prosecution that this administration has dealt with over the last 4 years, which is, do you put somebody in military detention who has committed a terrorist attack against the U.S. and who is connected to al-Qaeda? Congress has spoken pretty clearly about this, that's the direction that an individual like that who's detained should be handled. And then the question is, where do you put them? I don't think the Obama administration is going to put anybody in Guantanamo. That, to them, would be anathema. It would run counter to the perception that we want to close Guantanamo. And so they will avoid that at all costs. The question then is, what do you do with them? You could have a tribunal, just like we were talking about with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, at a military detention facility, or ultimately you could have the Department of Justice try them in a civilian court. But that will raise all the fundamental questions about what we should be doing with terrorist suspects in a post 9/11 world. So this is a really thorny question, and it has diplomatic implications. It has implications for how the Obama administration wants to be perceived in the region, a region that's still under quite a bit of chaos and tumult. And so watch this as a very key question in the coming days, beyond what the administration said. But what do we actually do about the fact that you have people with American blood on their hands sitting in Libya whom the FBI may be making cases against? What do we do with them?
There are a couple of other possibilities, and we'll get to one of them quickly, and that is we could allow the Libyans to prosecute if they would. Would that be good enough for us?
Well, I think that is an option. That is sort of the best option from a diplomatic standpoint, to be able to sort of have two benefits at once, holding people accountable, but also giving the Libyan government credit and some degree of credibility that they can handle this. The problem with that is I'm not sure that satisfies people here at home. You had the first American ambassador killed abroad since 1979. Lack of faith in the rule of law in Libya in many quarters, and a sense that if justice is to be brought, it needs to be brought at the hands of an American court system or some sort of process. And so that may be an angle, but I don't think it actually works at the end of the day. And so this creates a thorny problem for the administration.
And one other option, which will be a topic for a different day, is something that's an extrajudicial action. Maybe the use of American power, drone power, against people we can identify there.
Well, this administration has clearly made the case that we are engaged in a global battle against terror. They don't call it the war on terror, but they've definitively made this a global war. So it's not just Afghanistan or Iraq, it's Yemen, North Africa, East Africa. And so the question is, can we justify the use of force? And is the administration willing to go that far and to be perceived to be opening a new front in the war on terror?
And that is the topic we're going to start with next time on Flashpoints.
Fantastic.
Juan, thanks very much. Thanks to you for watching. I'm Bob Orr. Have a good day.